What's up, guys? This is Andrew with Combat Art Training. Today, I'm going to be joined by Sonny Fazekas of Forward Training Concepts and Gary Marr of Tremis Dynamics. We're going to be discussing competency versus safety. What is the difference? Do you want to be a safe shooter, or do you want to be a competent shooter? Or do you want to be something else? That is the question that we're going to be talking about today. Now, kind of going into it and the why behind this video. If you think about it, much like the word tactics, right? Tactical. That word has a lot behind it, and it's been very abused and misunderstood, misrepresented. Same thing with safety. Same thing with the word professional, right? And now this is something that I've touched on before, and that I have got a lot more to say about. And I could probably do 3 hours on this alone, but I wanted to bring Sonny and Gary on with me to give their commentary, especially because these are two guys that influence me in this way also, with where my brain is at in this conversation. So I might do another video on this later, but we're going to have them join us for it. Now, before we get started, remember September 27th and 28th at Taprack Ridge in Gray, Kentucky will be the Combat Arts Summit. You can train with me there, you can train with Gary there, you can train with Sonny there, and there's many others. If you have trained with anyone who is on the list of instructors, you can contact them and get a discount code that will get you $100 off tickets for the Combat Arts Summit. And so instead of $450 for the summit, it will be $350. And that is our thanks to you guys for being good students, for training frequently. And if you sign up for a class with any of the instructors on the list before the summit, you can also contact them and ask them for the discount code for the summit, because I get it. We want to help the guys I've trained with us prior, but I figure if you're just catching up right now and you're going to take a class right before the summit, well, we can still give you a discount on that. So again, September 27th and 28th in Gray, Kentucky at Taprack Ridge is the Combat Arts Summit. Day one, there will be 3 4-hour blocks. Morning, afternoon, low light. Day two, it'll be morning, afternoon, and we'll do a raffle, and all the proceeds from the raffle are going to go towards Aiming for Truth, Kevin Dixie's foundation. So we can talk more about that later. It's on the screen. There's a QR code. You just go to combatarttraining.com to sign up. And again, if you've trained with any of the instructors on the list, just contact them. Tactical response should be there too. They said they would be. I just have to go over the details with them, and then we'll put them on the list and give them a discount code as well. So without further ado, we have Sonny here waiting. I'm sure Gary will catch up in a second. I'll bring Sonny on screen now. And now I have to figure out how to do the screen thing. And right there. There we go. And I think we'll put it like that. Sonny, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Andrew. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you for being here. It was funny. I was doing a live yesterday. I invited Gary, and then today he was like, I totally would have been there. I was like, let's do a live tonight. I was like, let's do competency versus safety. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, man, we're gonna be like quoting Sonny a ton. And it'd be kind of messed up if we were just like saying all your stuff and you weren't here. So thank you for being here.
No problem, buddy. No problem.
So when we talk about what firearm safety is in the general public, not so much the way we think about it, but what things do you generally see people say about firearm safety?
I think it's a loaded topic. It's a loaded topic, and I think there has to be a distinction, because the general public, how would I say it? But there's so little knowledge about what are the firearms, what they are for, there's so little familiarity with it, and in general public, from my observation, that there's fear. They're afraid of the firearm. There's this scary machine that will do these terrible things all by itself. It has its own character and personality and short temper, and you're kind of looking at people, and you know where we at, I guess we can laugh, but to a certain degree, it's understandable because people have been indoctrinated. People
Mhm.
have been indoctrinated. Everything is, it's not just violence. It's not hood violence. It's not psychopath violence. It's gun violence. As if guns do the violence, right? And most folks don't know any better. They really don't. It's not because they're stupid. They just don't know. You're stupid. You're a fool before you know on any topic. And firearms is one of those topics that the general public, especially if they haven't had, in the childhood things like, going hunting with the dad or the grandpa or whatnot, their understanding of firearms mostly comes from media, from the scare tactics, from the fear mongering.
Right. And it's also, I think too, it's a lot with who taught them about guns initially. Right.
True.
And so, like you or me or Gary, or one of the other instructors that we like, us teaching our kids or someone we know about guns, we're going to take a totally different approach versus, someone who thinks of as a gun as a tool that stays in a safe, the ammo stored separately, and it comes out. We're going to a place to do a thing, either shoot at paper or shoot at deer, right?
Yeah.
So,
And part of it is, yeah, yes, like you met my son. He's 15. In his little building, he has the 12 gauge shotgun sitting there, loaded, one in the chamber. It has safety on. He knows how to operate it. He has one of those conversion things with the Glock 17 in it that looks more like a SMG. Safety on it, one in the chamber, 33 round magazine with extra 33 round magazine attached to it. And people go like, so you leave it like that with your son when you like leave the house? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's there, it's overnight, it's he's in the house, it's there. And for some people it's almost like this, like, oh my god, aren't you afraid? I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not, because he's been explained very directly what the firearms are for, what guns are meant to do. And because of he's always been around them, there is no exoticism to for firearms. It's not some exotic forbidden fucking fruit, what I mean, for him to go like, oh, no one's watching, I'm gonna go touch, finger it, play with it or whatnot. What I mean, he knows exactly what they do, what they meant for. And if I get something new, he goes like, hey dad, can I take a look at it or whatnot, and but he never goes in and grabs it by himself. I have my stuff stacked in my bedroom, not in the safe, and never touches him.
yeah. And it's funny too, because, like for me, when I was 15, I either had an AK or an AR loaded in my
Yeah,
closet as well.
yeah,
My dad would work nights.
yeah.
So what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to run to the safe, unlock the safe while someone's breaking in? Why do we even have these? And there, of course, is that whole discussion of how available is it, like how secure is it versus someone can steal it versus you can actually use it. But the purpose of having them is to be able to use them. Now, also you mentioned like it's not a forbidden thing, and
Yeah.
and before I had an AR or an AK in my closet, I definitely would go find them and mess with them when no one was looking, right?
Yeah.
And then once it was just in my closet, it didn't matter to me. And I'm not telling people that they need to do that for their kid. That's totally a personal decision, and
Absolutely.
I don't even really talk too much on how to teach kids gun safety. I think that's a responsibility of the parent. I think there's definitely a great way to go about it. One thing that like you touched on is similar to what I saw in an unfancy video like 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, that's actually really smart, is if they ever are curious, go ahead and show them, take
Mhm.
that curiosity out, because they're going to find it. Like when I was a kid,
They
when,
they will. They
yeah,
will, man. Kids are innovative. They are sneaky as sneaky little shits, and they will get to it. You cannot hide it well enough unless it's truly in the safe and it's locked, coded, and all that stuff. So with my kids, I removed that forbidden fruit image very early on because they know that both me and Megan always carry. There is a gun bedside on both sides of the bed at all times. And the whole thing of, ooh, what is that? Wonder if I can play with it when my parents are not watching. It's non-existent. It's absolutely non-existent.
yes, you were focused on competency, and you're the one who I got that phrase from. Instead of teaching gun safety, teaching gun competency, and I absolutely love it. I remember when I was in class with you, I was doing gun up, and basically boiled down to is like, hey, are you trying to be safe or dangerous to the bad guy? And I was like, fuck. And that's that's the thing I love about training with Sonny, guys. It's like he'll say something so simple, completely changes the way you look at everything.
I mean, I don't know, Andrew. To me, it's not really, like a shock value of the. It's actually sad that phrases like that have shock value. They
Mm-hmm.
they should not be shocking phrases. You know what I mean? It's if I put a gun in my hands, you know, unless I'm training or hunting or whatever else is going on, but if it's in some kind of environment in society, right? Something bad is pretty bad is going on probably, or at least about to, or I suspect that something will happen or whatnot. You know, and a lot of people go like, well, first concern is don't point the gun at anyone you're not willing to kill. Okay, I really have no problem with that phrase or the idea behind it. I don't, right? But if I already determined where the bad guy is, you know, whatever the situation might be, God forbid, you find yourself in a situation of, so-called active shooter, which again, that phrase itself, I'm like, as opposed to what, passive shooter? What the fuck? Active shooter, huh? I mean, if he's shooting, that's the activity. That's active, right? Yeah, anyway, like you said, phrases, tactical or active shooter, you just kind of go like, or for that matter, safety, right? And if he's somewhere in the crowd or whatnot, I may get a glance at him for point 0.5 seconds. If my weapon is up here, that point 0.5 seconds for me to lower it, acquire, and press the trigger may not quite be enough. I mean, and those point 0.5 seconds may be the only window of opportunity to end it. And I'm thinking, so where is safety, where is competence, where is understanding your purpose, and where is following the dogma of one-way range safety for beginners, right? No, I'm probably going to have my weapon presented, finger off the trigger, whichever way you're going to work it, disciplined, and if, God willing, I do have that opening, boom, hopefully that point 0.5 seconds will be enough for well-aimed, accurate shot. And some people will go like, well, he was pointing to other people, as opposed to missing the only opportunity to take out that active shooter. So, I mean, let's weigh the options here. And I kind of find it funny where people go, range safety rules become this golden calf, that you should not blaspheme about. It's not gradable, it's not adjustable, it's not adaptable. It's just is what is. It's the God's rule, and follow it. And if you miss that one singular opportunity to take out the bad guy, well, at least you were safe while you were doing that. Meanwhile, he whacks another eight people. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's to me, it's you know. So that's that.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, because I mean, I was going to get into specifics later, but that's a great example. It's like, am I going to be in a safe direction, at a low rate, at a high rate, or am I going to be aimed where I think he's going to be? And that was last year, one of the lessons that I learned. When you came around a corner and your gun was already up, and that split second mattered. I got shot before I was able to shoot back, and so that's one thing. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to make it to the Force on Force in PA this year also. But like that was exactly the training I needed. Like as far as like the things I was trying to learn, like that was a big one for me. Now, so what does gun safety mean to most people, right? And from training with Sonny, the phrase competency came in, right? So now the way I think about it, there's incompetent gun handling and there's competent gun handling. And incompetent, negligent would be basically like you're having an ND, you're breaking the 4 rules and you don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you can also be incompetent and safe technically, right? Like unload the guns, sort the ammo separately. We could use firing lines, of course, which is a thing that, you and I both do in classes. Gary does as well. A firing line is there as a safety measure because if we had everyone moving the whole time the way we want them to move, it would get reckless.
Yes.
And I, we had a discussion before the Shooter Fighter Matrix deep dive into shooting fundamentals class that we did together, where we're talking about like, we want to just 4 rules. Like if you just follow those and then understanding when to competently break them, as in if we're going to break these rules, it should be a conscious decision. We should know what's happening, right? And
absolutely,
you have to be good at it. Like you can't just break them willy-nilly. Right. There's a lot that goes into those. The thing I think about too is it's like one of the biggest ones is just unloaded guns, how everyone wants their gun unloaded. Right. And then when they pick it up, like you were saying earlier, there's a different level of fear, right? They suddenly everything matters. Right. And they're like, hey, careful, it's loaded. That's one big phrase. And hey, don't walk in front of me. Right. Stuff like that. And that goes towards something that you like to talk about too, is making it real for them, right? Like when I teach the 4 rules, gun safety in class, I like to do it with exercise where an exercise where they actually have a loaded gun and they actually have to follow the 4 rules. Now, when we do those, not a single shot should be fired, right? But doing things like touching the trigger, taking your finger off, up or down with the gun, and then going into like obviously they're treating it like it's loaded because it actually is loaded. If you teach someone gun safety and it's just with unloaded or fake guns, their brain knows the difference. They're not taking it as seriously as they would if it were loaded. And then know your target, what's in between, around, and beyond. There's a lot more that goes into that, but my basic thing, that I like to start people at, and I think people should start at, is simply understanding the 4 rules and being able to follow them.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with 4 rules per se. What I do have a problem is the absolutism that people project with those 4 rules. They are meant to keep people safe in training, especially when you have people of different levels. They are to be remembered, memorized, and kept in your head for when you are tired, when you're not quite there, other things happening. You overwhelmed with the situation. Maybe you'll put the gun in the position at least where it's not pointing at the people. Maybe you'll remember to keep that finger off the trigger. It's layered defense against making mistakes. And mistakes can happen. Mistakes can happen, and hopefully they're not going to be tragic. If ND happens, hopefully it's going to be in the dirt or in the safe direction. And I think this is where the 4 rules help. Even when something bad does happen, it happens in the safe direction where there is no tragedy. As you're well aware yourself, I had one of those that ended with somewhat of a tragedy. And That was not per se about safety rules. That was more about precautions taken prior to the drill. But nevertheless, it's not something that you take lightly. This should not be like, safety, not important. Bullshit. Safety is important. We're working with tools that are meant to hurt and or kill other living creatures. And, it's kind of like a life blades, like you were saying, why do we want to train with a loaded weapon? It's kind of, or swimming, you can talk about water, you can have a bucket of water in the room, but laying on the couch, you're not going to learn to swim. You're going to have to get into the water. The blade, when you're playing with a rubber blade, is one thing. I pull out the live blade, shit changes. I put that live blade to your neck, shit changes. You no longer want to do anything stupid, adventurous, cool, or whatnot, because smallest mistake will translate into significant consequences. So I think, not having that constant cold range, or unless they're, the requirements of the drill as such. If we're working with retention, if we're working disarms, if we're working other situations like that, then yes, you make sure that if there is not enough training weapons or whatnot, you make sure that things are where they need to be. You continue in that fashion. But the whole thing of we only get hot when we're shooting down the range at the paper or steel or whatnot, that's, that's kind of isolating the kids from taking risks and understanding what those risks, what consequences they come with. Lessons need to be learned, and as instructors, if we do it in thoughtful, well devised pattern, I think you can push people pretty far along the line of risk without really compromising per se the safety.
Yes, it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk.
Yes,
it's not
it is.
a gamble.
Yes.
And so one of the things with that too is layers of safety, right? When there's 4 rules, treat it like slowly, keep it pointing in a safe direction, finger off, know your target was in between or beyond. When there's those 4 rules, there is redundancy there. Yes. Now, and that's something too where I see it, at ranges with just people handling guns in general, and then even in classes too. And they will say, like, we're adding a layer of safety, we're adding redundancy. 4 rules is redundant. If we were to keep it simple, it would just be all guns are always loaded. It's one thing that people say, or the way you phrase it, give weapons
treat the weapons with respect they deserve.
Yes. And so, but when they add a bunch more, the other hard part about that, especially for someone who is new to it, is instead of thinking about 4 things, which really, if you're treating it like it's loaded because it is loaded, it's basically, in a class, primarily just finger off, safe direction. Basically 2 things they actually have to think about, because there is a berm there. There's a target that, hey, we're shooting at that thing, right? When we're talking like a more beginner level class, not doing, more advanced, like moving type drills with multiple people involved and stuff like that, basically it's, hey, make sure your finger's off the trigger, pointing in a safe direction. When you add 5, 10 other things to it, now it makes it more complicated for them. When we taught that class together, we had that Marine there, and he was like, man, I've been to a lot of classes where they're really hard on safety and yelling at people. Yeah. And he's like, honestly, I felt totally safe here. You guys were so chill.
Yeah, he really enjoyed it, because he was at my class this past weekend and is coming to the next advanced shooter fighter matrix in a couple of weeks here. He kind of caught a bug from that class, and yeah, he's a serious dude with very serious experience, very serious background, and a very serious profession, which we're not going to talk about. But yeah, he's been talking about it. He goes like, dude, I've been through all these high drag, low drag, high speed classes, and instructors tier 1, tier 0, tier -1. He goes like, training with you, dude, it's kind of like you pass the tiers and you're just kind of going like, listen, this is the work. This is the efficient way to do the work. Get shit done. He goes, and I love it because I don't feel like I'm treated like a fucking child. It's adult education for adults. And that's another part. It's how would I say it? Sometimes, yes, I understand. If you're teaching especially entry level classes where you may have people you've never met or whatnot, as you know, I don't teach those kind of classes. And I
Mhm.
really don't get complete beginners in my classes. Actually, quite the opposite. And but I would imagine if I were to teach classes like that, I would probably be more verbal about very specifically, very directly, and quite rigidly following those four rules, especially the first three ones,
Mhm.
right? And but that also has to be done respectfully. You know what I mean? Because when you see the dude, who has done three tours in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatnot, he's been around a little bit. He has some calluses from combat, or at least hearing bullets whizzing by or whatnot, and maybe sending few down range, real range. And he carries his rifle in the sling, and his muzzle sweeps someone's toes, and you start calling him fucking idiot and all that. I'm sorry, dude. That is just childish.
Mhm.
That is stupid. That is childish, and that is not respecting your students. You're not treating them as adults. Now, granted, someone stands there with a handgun and goes like, "Hey, Johnny, can you go get me a bottle of?" Okay, yeah, you kick him in the face,
Mhm.
plain and simple. I don't care about his experience. You don't wave your gun like it's a dick. You don't, right? But if the drill involves moving between the people and doing things, okay, so his gun is not pointed up or down; it's pointed past someone. Is his finger off the trigger? Like you were talking about redundancy. Does he have
Mhm.
redundancy built into his operation? If he does, I'm good, man. I'm good. So to me, that's you know and here's the thing. I see that someone just posted, and not to be a devil's advocate, when people say treat every gun like it's loaded. You heard the example that I use, Andrew, right? And the example that I use is, do you treat every car as if it's moving, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if we take that logic, okay, anyone that crosses in front of the parked vehicle should be ticketed for dangerous, reckless behavior, right? But you kind of look at the vehicle, you go like, engine is not running, there is no driver in the driver's seat. Is it running? I mean, is that car moving? I mean, I looked at it, it's standing in the fucking parking spot. Should I treat it as if that car is moving, or I'm okay to walk in front of it, behind it? Yeah, granted, you know, if the driver is in it and the engine is running, I'm gonna be a little bit more cautious before I walk in front. Maybe he will not notice me. Maybe he's half fucking blind or whatever the case is, right? But with the gun, if it's loaded, you treat it as it's loaded. If you unload it, if you're going to do the drill, let's say with weapon retention, and you don't use training weapons because maybe they're not available, whatever the case might be, right? You unload the weapon, you check the weapon visually and tactile check. Your partner checks it, instructor checks it. You close the slide. Please show me how is it loaded. I mean, I'll wait for the proof. I'll wait for the science behind it. No, at that point, that gun is unloaded. And as long as it stays in the operation within the eye view of the instructor and both participants, we are good. If the owner of that gun walks away to take a piss in the porta potty and he comes back, it should be rechecked if we're still doing that kind of a drill. Yes,
Mhm.
ideally, you should use the training weapon. I don't disagree with that. All right. But again, when they say treat every weapon as if it's loaded, and some people will say even if it's unloaded, this is where they lose me. This is where they lose me. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I love vehicles as an example. relating to this. Jaeger did a video a long time ago. I think it was people were freaking out that Jay was downrange taking pictures of students. And it's like, here's my first thing. If you've never shot past a breathing human being who you were trying not to shoot, like you knew where they were, maybe you have to move to make the shot, maybe they're just next to the target. If you have never experienced that, but you carry a gun in public, that is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
During an emergency where it is chaotic, that should not be your first time doing that. And the other thing with it too is like people will freak out at even the concept of that, right? However, I guarantee they have driven under the influence of either drugs or alcohol. And I guarantee they don't refuse to drive at night knowing other people are under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
And with your example too, how many people will rush out, drive their car real fast to make it? How many guys will freely cut themselves off or cut off other people? How many people will run across the road even though they might trip, and they might, who knows? Maybe the guy driving literally wants to smash into someone.
Yeah. Maybe the guy standing on the sidewalk wants to commit suicide. Should I stop until he disappears from that corner? You know what I'm saying? Again, we talked about it, Andrew. A lot more people die in the vehicle-related accidents that's from gunshots. A lot more people die from the, in the car violence, right? Not gun violence, but vehicular violence, right? And it's funny that they don't call that violence, right?
Yes.
Anyway, I don't know, man. It's, I think, I don't want to think that way, Andrew, but I think that maybe, just maybe, for some instructors, that's one of the biggest patch that they can have is, look how much I talk about safety, how much I care about you. Because I need to spend an hour and a half babbling about that shit because I don't have enough material for the next 6 hours.
And I have, because you also mentioned the tier 1 guy, right?
Right.
And I don't like dragging down people by name or anything like that. In fact, even like the person that I could quote as saying that there are things that I have learned that I have adopted from that person, even though I've never trained with them. I've just seen videos on the internet, but I've seen like guys who are the top level call an ND, like as in a guy shot his own hand, an 80, an accident. Okay, maybe it was accidental, but if we're going to put a phrase on it, I would call it negligence, right? Like the gun was pointing at your hand and you press the trigger. That would be negligence in my brain.
When you do something and it has unintended consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, is because you didn't pay attention, you didn't think about it ahead, something slipped your, something past the filters of your attention or whatnot, and yes, that could be summed up as inattentiveness and or negligence. I agree. Accident is what? Accident is, I don't know. You have your gun in the holster. You fall so hard that the curb smashes your holster, and then part of the kite expresses the trigger. That's accident.
Yeah.
That's accident. That's not negligence because you had it in the holster. Some people say, well, it was still negligence. It's probably some Israeli tier 1 guy. You had around in the chamber. That's why we'll carry on. Shut up. Right? You go. Now they're going to call me anti-Semitic because I, use that example. But that's okay too. Yeah, in general, you're correct. It is negligence in some way, shape, or form. Again, it's not necessarily something with negligence most of the time is not intentional. negligence most of the time is not something that people don't care. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're so sure that nothing bad can happen, and maybe they overlooked something. I have my own example from the 13 years ago. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or whatnot. And then bad shit happens. And that's negligence. That's negligence.
Mhm. Yeah, I basically I describe it like a negligent discharge be breaking the 4 rules, or you modify your gun to the point where it's a hand grenade and it goes off because it's your fault, right? Then an accidental discharge would be like a mechanical failure of the gun. That's not your fault. TIG 320 when it was brand new,
I
but
was
everyone
I
was
was gonna
like,
say there's negligent discharge or 320 discharge. Those are different, you
well,
know.
I would say if you bought it when it first came out, like I did, I had 2 of them, right?
Uh-huh.
I didn't even get rid of them for the drop safety thing. I just wanted cheaper magazines, so I went to Glock.
I see.
But yeah, if you bought one then, a mechanical failure of the gun happened, I would call that an accident because Sig at the time was a pretty good brand. I even think still they have a lot of good products. But if you right now go buy one and something crazy happens, that would be different. Unintentional discharge, though, I just determine as like I'm drawing, prepping the trigger, following the 4 rules, right? And it just breaks the shot before I intend it to go off. But hey, guys, we got Gary Marr from Tremis Dynamics here.
Oh, right.
Gary, go ahead, look at the camera so I know you can hear me. There we go. And welcome.
Damn, he's so good. He's so good looking.
All right, now we got 3 people, so let's try to do this. If you got something to add, throw a hand up because there's like a couple second delay sometimes, and so it'll be smoother if you go. All right,
Got it.
So now Gary and I had like just thrown him some notes as to like things I wanted to talk about. One of them, so we did talk about it, the unload show clear. Now, I get it if you got 30 people and it's like it's hard to manage for the instructor. Like I'm not talking shit on it, but I do get irritated when it's me and one other person. First off, if they unload their gun to hand it to me, that drives me up the wall. If they unload my gun, that drives me up the wall. But if it's just me and one other dude and they show me their guns unloaded when they're not going to do anything that involves it needing to be unloaded, that drives me fucking bananas. It's one of my things is like, it's on you, right? Competency. Are we going to be competent or do we need to throw in this extra step of me showing you that I unloaded my gun? What do you guys think?
If you're not going to take that gun and point it at places where you would normally consider it to be unsafe, I don't see a reason to ever unload and show clear. Like if we were going to do some grappling thing and we didn't have a bunch of blue guns or cert guns and things like that, like, okay, that's the time that hey, look, it's empty and he says it's empty. We all say it's empty and now we'll grapple for it or whatever. Otherwise, when it's still like live fire stuff, I don't see the point. Like treat it like it's a real gun, put it in your holster where it belongs and, call it a day. Like I don't see the need to leave the line to go back to stuff magazines or whatever people do with an empty gun.
Agreed.
Now, one of the other ones is reholstering, and I don't know if maybe Sonny disagrees. It's a thing that's always said is that you need to look at the holster. You need to stare at the gun in the holster. Gary and I have had this discussion. We even did a video on it. There may be a time you do need to look at the holster. There may be, but I think everyone should be capable of putting the gun in the holster without looking at it. Various reasons would be you don't want to use a light and you're trying to hide in the darkness. It could be that, like a woman with big boobs or a dude with a big belly, maybe a dude with a big belly and big boobs, can't see his holster. Gear could be in the way, night vision tubes trying to aim that at the holster, various different reasons. Or, first guy I ever saw get shot, I thought he was dead, and then he got right back up. And so I imagine, the glad I wasn't a bad guy. I was on a ride along in North Minneapolis, but I imagine bad guys do that too, and happening. Now, the big thing for Gary and I is that whenever we do see instructors that do say to always look at the holster or stare the gun into the holster, they don't actually do that. Like you can see videos of them. There's always video of them not doing it, and then also in class, they don't do that. And the other thing is that I know for Gary and myself, we've both tested, like unload a gun, take your holster off, put stuff in the holster, try to make the trigger press. We got was basically like you have to physically pull a shirt through it, pull a cord with a toggle on it through it, or like take a pencil and put it through your trigger and then push the gun in. I think I'm kind of speaking for both Gary and myself, but Sonny, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so it may sound like I have a different opinion, but not really.
Okay.
Here's my thing. I think that over the past 15, 20 years, that action of reholstering or holstering back has become a cool time. This is where a lot of operator types, they pretty much throw their gun in the holster. Pretty much like, boom! You know what I mean? Like, they do it exceedingly fast to, I guess, demonstrate how fucking proficient they are with all their gear. And what I noticed over relatively long time teaching is that a lot of students that don't have nowhere near the proficiency nor time with weapon or gear do the same. They try to duplicate that coolness factor of a 3-shot from the distance of 3-shot throwing the gun into their holster. I have seen on at least half dozen occasions gun literally fall out of his hand because he let it out before the gun started sliding into the holster. For that reason, what I tell guys in the class is do it slow. There is no need to be in a rush when you're holstering. And yes, I do tell them, I do want you to look at it. Okay. To me, this is a training tool, like a tennis ball in our force-on-force classes, right? It's a training tool to get people away from the coolness factor of a quickness in holstering the weapon. Now, we, in our classes, all three of us, we don't have that many people coming in with worn out old leather holsters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reality is some dudes, especially out here in East Texas, still carry in 18-year-old Bianchi leather holsters. You know what I mean? And at the same time, you look at his 1911, that bitch does have 1.8 pound trigger. You know what I mean? And you look at that leather and it's warped on the corners and all that. And I kind of go like, I don't, yeah, it's not my balls, it's not my dick, but still, I don't know, right? Again, I don't get those guys in classes, but I go pick up the new weapon from the gun store or whatnot, whoever is my, dealer here is, and I see the dudes coming in, equipped like that, and they act very competent. But at the same time, you just kind of go like, I probably would not want him to continue doing that habitual, quickly throwing the gun into a holster from behind from the other side of the road, so to speak, and not looking at it. So that is my take. That's why in my classes, I do stress to guys, slow the F down when you're holstering your weapon. Do not rush, even if it's force on force. Now, do I always take a look at the holster? Not 100%, but more often than not, I do. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I don't see any. I can't complain. I was ready to argue, but yeah, I tell folks, if you need to look at it, look at it. And then I'm pretty much done talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally agree with the when guys break their grip. That's something when I talk about holstering your gun specifically. Keep a full grip until you feel it index into place, until you feel that nice click, and so it's all the way in there. And I tell them, while you're putting away, I want you to imagine he's going to get back up, or someone's going to come tackle you from behind. So you want to have a full grip.
And that's important point there, Andrew, because because of that operator speed operating, because he's so tactically cool, I noticed the very moment they start pulling that weapon back and they know they're going back into a holster, the grip falls apart. That very moment they start moving, they haven't even yet tilted it downwards. The grip starts falling apart. As I said, that's where half a dozen times I saw the gun literally fall on the freaking ground.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, having that presence of mind that makes sure you maintain that grip until you have that positive that you know that it's in the holster. Yeah, that's the thing that we need to be teaching. But unfortunately, I think in the most classes, people absolutely don't even talk about it. The only thing they mention, and this is to me the part that I disagree with, keep your eyes on the battlefield while you're putting the gun back in the holster. If it's still a battlefield, why the fuck you're putting your gun back in the holster? If it's still a battlefield, your gun should be out. You're not holstering your weapon if it's still a battlefield. You know what I mean? Or you're going to lose one of 6 enemies. If there's still 6 enemies there, what the fuck you doing with the pistol in the first place? Second question, why are you holstering that thing? Are you giving up? Are you looking for your white flag to wave? I mean, what are you doing?
Well, the different from that, the thing I think about is like I might, like let's say at my house and I've got my pistol on and something happens and I move over to where my rifle is. I'm going to keep my head up. I'm going to put it away fast. But that also is because I've built a competency in it. There is a very strict procedure that I follow as far as like shirt up, then gun goes down, and the way I find the holster, and I can check with my finger if there is something in there or not, and the way I put it away. I also think about malfunctions and reloads one-handed. I may want to reholster it quickly there. And I would want to keep my head up, Overall, yeah, I do see what you mean, though. Of like, yeah, I wouldn't be.
When people say look at the holster, for some reason, I think people have this idea that I'm looking down there for 30 seconds.
Right.
No, as my garments go up, it's a very quick glance at the moment when it's about to go in. Very quick glance to make sure. Within 0.3 seconds, I'm back up as far as my vision. I'm not staying there for freaking 30 seconds to make sure that, everything is nice and neat and all. No. No. It's not something, like people go like, never take your eyes off what's going on, And you see people doing malfunctions. What do you see? The eyes go towards the gun because where they're putting the magazine, what? But sometimes it's just for a split second. I don't see a huge deal about it to make a big fuss. When they get more competent, yes, that will either disappear completely or become so, unimportant, so negligent, so to speak, as far as how much time it takes or to what degree you look off. Turning your eyes doesn't mean that you lose peripheral vision either.
I would hope that you were keeping the peripheral vision the whole time.
But as we know, Gary, that's not always the case.
True. But like we're not focused on the target focused the whole time. Like we're still looking like where's the other target? If we found Curtis, where's Leroy? So the time that we're doing this on the range is less time or the same amount of time or more time than the time it takes to go.
Yeah,
the gun went in the holster.
Now,
I think we really
make sure you don't step in a fucking open manhole too. Every once in a while, looking, at your surroundings is a good idea. Maybe.
No, I mean, you've seen it, guys, in force-on-force classes. When people come, especially when you're doing it diminished light conditions, how often people will look at the pieces of furniture and take their eyes off of battlefield and all that shit. to a certain degree, it's natural until they truly develop full-time presence of that peripheral vision, which is not easy. It's not easy. It's gonna happen. So I think with the whole thing of holstering or reholstering, whichever way you're gonna call it, I don't think we're on different pages. I just think that I have this specific beef with this quick operator holstering procedure that seemed to have taken hold and it became pretty fashionable in the fucking industry. And that's why I kind of took her out of making, just hammering it to people. Slow down when you're holstering. Slow down when you're holstering, because I've seen enough guns dropped and people doing stupid shit where I go like, this has become just a bad habit.
I stole a proprietary molecule from John Farnham in whatever class I took from him, whatever it was called. He said reluctantly reholster. At the end of every drill, it was reluctantly reholster.
Mm-hmm.
So that became part of my my vocabulary for when a drill is over. I end every drill with, if you feel safe, you may reluctantly reholster. So I'm hoping that my repetition of the word reluctantly is, creeping in there in the folds of the gray matter, and maybe, helping influence those guys. I mean, it is what they paid me for.
It's good. It's good. I like it. I may actually borrow it. Reluctantly reholster. I like that. I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to give you credit because it came from John, right? So.
Right. Yeah. I don't.
So there you go. I will say, from John Farnham via Gary Marr. So there you go.
I don't care if you give me or him credit.
Some people do, man. Some people do. Like I used a couple of things from my old friend when I worked. He's former Navy SEAL and all that stuff. And I used, I said something or wrote something where I said, when the bullet is in the air, it's the motherfucking king. He lost his shit because I didn't give credit. And mind you, it's not his phrase. It's someone who said that apparently was one of his instructors during Bud's training. But I don't have a trident on my undies, so I guess I should not say it,
Gary does, though, so it's okay. Now we can all say it.
Gary, okay, cool.
All right, now, so layers of safety, right? Now, what about putting a gun on safe during a malfunction, a reload, or switching hands?
No. Fuck no.
Gary?
I tell folks that I'd like them to get in the habit. Now, I'm strictly talking about an AR here because I don't own a pistol with a safety. Well, maybe I do if I dig around the office. So discounting pistols out of this. So I tell folks with the AR, if you're taking it off your cheek, you should put it on safe so that when you let it hang a moment later, it's not a loose trigger guard on your shit. Which, if that's their default when they're doing a reload or something else, it would be going on safe because the trigger would be, it came off my cheek. But the reality is it just needs to be on safe before you take your hands off of it. That's how I look at it. Just because I don't like the idea of a loose trigger bouncing around on a sling or somewhere where my hand's not on it.
Okay, so with that part, I don't disagree at all. But, my understanding of the question was that malfunction or something along those lines, your weapon is still being manipulated here. It's not being let loose to hang against your gear if you have gear.
Right.
Or maybe your gear is your 12-inch slong there because you're at 3 a.m., and all that. and you can consider that a pretty serious gear, right? Yeah, I mean, if you let your weapon hang off the sling or whatnot, then yes, whether it's AR or AK, I would suggest to put the safety on. Absolutely. Now if the malfunction happened, it went click instead of bang, okay, and I haven't done nothing with it, and I'm now going to transition to my pistol from the rifle, that click instead of bang means something.
It's the safest it's ever been.
It's the safest it's ever been. Now I don't need to put per se safety now. If I have time, luxury, presence of mind, would I? Maybe. But will I press for it? No, not really. On the other hand, if I'm doing something else and I have a suspicion that I do have hot round functioning internals and everything else, if I have all my loadout and 16 magazines on my place and all that shit, yeah, before I let it hang, I would want safety on. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was something I had a discussion with Gary about, because I did dynamic carbine. Sorry, is it dynamic carbine or dynamic rifle?
Carbine.
Okay, all right, making sure I got it right. Dynamic carbine and day 3 dynamic carbine, and I was running an AR, and they were having us put on safe when it came off our face, and I was like, "Is that a safety thing or is that a manual of arms thing?" And he was like, "Oh, it's manual of arms." I was like, "Okay, all right," because when I do a rifle class, I want them working the safety too. Now, the one of the things that is, and it comes from U.S. military, especially SF guys, they want you to put it on safe during a malfunction or a reload. And my thing is, like, number one, click and no bang. When it goes click, it doesn't go on safe. And it's a thing I see repeated in especially videos a lot. They'll say, click, put it on safe. And I'm like, dude, that's not even how it works. Like, mechanically impossible unless you got some weird gun that allows it. And again, like you said, my non-functioning gun. And I had I'm not talking shit, but I had a student have an NDN class, safe direction, just finger on the trigger, and it was like real early. It was just me and him too. It wasn't that big of a deal. But he was trying to put it on safe with his left hand while his right hand was on the pistol grip, and he had his finger on the trigger. And he was a newer shooter, and I kept reminding him, take your finger off, take your finger off, take your finger off. And as he was trying to work the safety, I'm going finger off, finger off, finger off, kapow. And I go, that's not what I said to do. And he was shook up by it, but then he realized, like, oh shit, my finger coming off the trigger is way more important than me putting it on safe. And the thing that, whenever I have this discussion with someone, the thing I ask them is like, has a gun being set to fire ever made it go off? Because, I've got a rifle right here. I could put that on fire. It's out of frame. Let's try it.
Just don't put it in the frame.
Yep. It's not going off. I feel like if I press the fucking trigger right now, it might, though. And that's one of the other things is, I'll put it back up safe just in case. But okay. That's one of the other things is when they're adding lots of layers of safety, right? Lots of different things. It is distracting from the root cause of the problem, right? Most NDs with good guns, like guns that weren't coming from the factory as a hand grenade or weren't tinkered with until they were a hand grenade. The root cause of them going off isn't that they're loaded, isn't that they're on fire. It's that they press the damn trigger.
It's an operator error.
Yes. And and I've seen it too, where the guys that like to add a whole bunch of other safety stuff that's outside of the 4 rules, which if you just follow the 4 rules, nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens. If you break one of the 4 rules, you look really stupid, but still nothing really bad happens, right? But when they add a whole bunch of stuff, it's always, I find those guys that also forget the 4 rules. Like, they don't even have them memorized. I've seen that in classes where the instructor will go over the safety part and they will forget one of the rules. And I've seen lots of people do that where it's like, whatever position they're in, that shouldn't be happening. And that's why, like, when I teach a class, instead of immediately going over the 4 rules, especially if I know there's students there that have taken multiple classes, I'll go, all right, Who's taken classes before? Okay, cool. All right. Who knows the 4 rules? All right, cool. Tell me them. And one of the things with that too is it's like guys who have taken a lot of classes, they should by all means know them. I think if you're a gun owner, you should know them. But inevitably, guys always forget them, or they mix one up with something else. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I too ask students to give me the 4 firearm safety rules, and really, there's only one, but the other 3 are how we do that one. But yeah, I have them tell them to me, and I don't have any more.
And that's a good point. Yeah.
The only thing I do, and you heard it, Andrew, in my classes, and Gary heard when I was teaching in Pennsylvania, it's treat the weapon with respect it deserves. Don't be stupid, And then I explained, that rules are applicable in certain environments. And as me and you, Andrew, spoke about, you gotta know on the conscious level to experience when it is not only okay but beneficial to break some of those rules in the real situations. And I think we should focus more on explaining people that, but with that being said, they should be aware of those rules. They should be aware of those rules, especially if these are the people that don't have the baggage of 15, 20, 30 years of doing the pew-pew thing or whatnot. Yeah, they it's a good idea to know that finger and trigger should be separated in some fashion until it's time not to be separated. Yeah, it's a good idea not to wave your firearm around like it's a dick. And, awareness of that has to be there. But I think, good explanation with demonstrations, with certain data that substantiates that, if you keep that finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot, that decision I'm ready to shoot is happening sometimes in a split second. And when you're on the move and shit is happening, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen active tier 1 and all that stuff absolutely break their own rule that they teach when they teach because situation demanded it. And situation sometimes demands extremely, because it presents you with extremely tight time window and opportunity window. And if you follow all those things religiously as you were beginner on the range, you may lose one and only opportunity to do something. So,
and I think that's one of the biggest gripes I have with gun safety in general. It's not standardized. If you go over to your uncle's house, it's this way. When you go to the range, then it's this way. Then military, right? Like, they don't have access to ammo in general, right? It's only certain times when there's actual bullets involved. And, like I'm quoting you, right? But you said one time you took off your special forces diaper, correct? Like, you grew out of that. And that's a thing I think about too, is it's like, when I was Marine Corps infantry, I thought I was the best. I thought we were the infinite badasses. That's why most of us joined. We wanted to be the cool guys. And now thinking about it later, I'm like, I wasn't allowed to have a fucking toaster in my room. I wasn't allowed to have ammo. I wasn't allowed to carry a gun. But by all means, we want to send you over this country that doesn't want us there to kill brown people so pedophiles can get rich.
You have a way with words, Andrew.
Now, so, a very anti-war veteran now. But thinking about that too, in context, right? Like when we were on, the Marine rifle range, right? The known distance range, doing table 1, that thing that Marines brag about. We're such good shooters because we shoot out to 500 yards, blah, blah, blah. Well, we fucking unloaded our guns every time we got off the line. We were not trusted with loaded guns as this tip of the spear, you know, first to fight, unload, show clear, right? So we unload our guns for that. Now, when we're on the rifle range, the 5 rules were super important because keep your weapon on safe was one of them, which does not apply to a lot of guns, specifically the one on me right now. But then when we go to a rush range, motherfuckers get flagged. They do. I was like, goddamn, I should be getting hazard pay because that motherfucker over there flagged me 9 times in the last 30 yards, right? So it's like we weren't even really following the 4 rules there. Although supposedly it's important, but yet also we're running around with loaded guns now. Yeah.
Time out.
Yep.
You were following the 4 rules because now you had 5 of them and you replaced the muzzle with the safety. You still have 4 rules covered.
Well, it was treat never
new one because we added an extra one.
We're redundant.
Yep.
We're so good.
Extra layer of redundancy. Yeah.
Well, and it was treat never keep. So know your target and what lies beyond is how they would say number 5. So they started going treat never keep no, and the last keep was keep your weapon on safe, right? So that's fucking crazy too, thinking about it, right? When they taught us gun safety, know your target was an afterthought. Like positive identification, use of force, or however they would what's that phrase? Escalation of force and all that stuff, right? That was an afterthought though. So it's kind of like that's another thing that drives me nuts is like when you go to different settings, it's not standardized, right? It would be great if 4 rules were standardized. Like everything would be simpler, and overall people would be a lot more competent because they'd be focused on 4 things and not, oh, we unloaded it, so just fucking forget all of it, or freak out because it's loaded and add 9 things. Now, one thing I'm interested in, because I'm sure like a lot of guys here have had kind of a similar experience growing up as far as learning competency and safety and all that with Gary and myself. But Sonny, what was it like for you? Like, what were you taught? What was, I know about your first experience with guns, but I'd like you to kind of share that. What was it like before the military, and what was it like in the military? How did that go for you?
Yeah, so before the military, because I kind of told you, in Soviet Union in schools we had the organization called the SOF, which is basically it's a volunteer organization to support Army, Air Force, and Fleet. And from the age of 12 on, they would take the boys and it would start with basic things like assembly, disassembly of AK rifle or Makarov pistol or whatnot. They would take you to the range starting at the age of, I believe first time it was probably around 12 or whatnot, and we were shooting basically like equivalent of 22 caliber rifles, and then eventually at 14 we were shooting the 545 AKs, and it was static, it was no movement, it was with support. Usually it was not even standing, it was either laying down or kneeling. And it was just familiarizing, getting kids to understand before they go to military or whatnot, what the scary recoil feels like, what the trigger feels like, how to acquire the sights, how to change the magazine, and all that. Nobody was really going into like a big safety lectures. They would tell you there were commands. Point a rifle, acquire the sights. Put the finger on the trigger, don't press it. Now, when you have it, when you know you're going to hit it in the face, press the trigger. And you simply follow commands because it's military kind of order. You know what I mean? There's a big scary guy standing there with a fucking camouflage and some medals on his chest that probably tells you how many people he has whacked in the past. You know, so all us, doe-eyed little fucking kids watching that guy going like, dude, if I break the rule, he's probably gonna break my fucking neck, so I better follow his command to the T. And that was that. When then I became a bad boy and illegally purchased the weapon and all that stuff. It was a pistol, and I didn't have no fucking holster for that pistol. You know what I mean? It was behind my belt in my pants. And didn't shoot my dick off, thankfully. And but we went out. I mean, we did things with other bad boys, and we were drinking and we were doing, and you would pull the gun out, oh, show me what you have or whatnot, No one was waving them around or whatnot. Everybody kind of picked it up, finger off the trigger, pointed it up, looked at it, pulled the slide, looked, oh, okay, there's a round in the chamber, so that means you don't play around with that shit. You know what I mean? And that was that. And when I went to military, it was, again, pretty basic. It was everything followed the commands, in basic training until you got the order down, until you understood what's going on. And then I told you my experience first day in the no longer regular military, when the guy sent me down the range in front of the berm, and then he told me to turn around, and he started shooting in my direction. And that changed a lot of things in my life, and because he told me, move as if you want to live. And so I did. And that's that, So, I mean, safety was looked at as a common sense logic from a grown up that should be present. It was not stressed as a separate discipline that needs to be fucking hammered into you because you are so stupid. If we entrust you with the gun and we have given you a couple months of training and you've been around other people and you moved with that gun around other people, it should be all right. I mean, granted, then when we started doing, in the outside of a regular military, when we started doing kicking in the doors and numerous people crisscrossing, going into the rooms and shooting other people, other considerations came into play and all that. But I told you guys, numerous times when we were deployed, we would carry in the cradle position around in the chamber, safety off. And we were flogging each other like mofos because I'm sorry, you're not going to carry like this for 12 hours straight in the, 13,000 feet elevation, in a hostile environment. It's not going to happen. So you carry it in the cradle. That way you don't exhaust yourself. But you do want around in the chamber, and you do want it off safe because sometimes shit happened like this in a moment. And nobody got whacked, nobody got shot, and that's just that. I don't know. It's strange to me when I came to US and when I got involved into this industry, how this became a fucking elephant in the room. You know what I mean? It was really interesting. It was really strange. So I don't know, man. It's again, I come from different culture. Russia is certainly not a gun culture as US claims to be, but for being a gun culture, we sometimes act a little uncultured, if you know what I'm saying.
Were you guys allowed to have ammo besides like did they take your guys' ammo, or are you guys allowed to have ammo like in your room? Do you have access like in regular army or
no? In a regular army, no. When you were in the barracks, no. The guns were locked, the rifles were locked in the armory, ammunition was locked in the armory, and let's say when people went on patrol, because where we were stationed, it was a number of nuclear reactors working in that city. It's closed city. It's a restricted access city. Number of nuclear reactors working for military purposes. Well, they were making nuclear weapons there, and so the whole perimeter around the city was patrolled. It had control towers. It had wire. It had all the safety systems and alarms and everything else, right? So when watching those guys going on patrol, so they would walk out. There was a special area before they leave their garrison, right? And they would come up there. So they would have their mag pouch with their 4 AK magazines in it or whatnot, and commanding officer or sergeant or whatnot, they would all line up. They would pick the rifles. They would hold them at 45-degree angle up. They would insert the magazine. They would remove the safety. They would charge the round in. They would put the safety on. They would put the rifle on the sling, and they would walk out towards their posts. And when they come back from their 4 hour on the post, it was exactly opposite procedure. They come in, they remove the magazine, they remove the safety, they work the bolt, it ejects the round. No one picks that round up. Only the sergeant picks that round up. They put the safety on, they sling the rifle, they put that magazine separately in one pouch where everybody knew that magazine now has one less round. And then they come back inside the barracks and weapons get turned into armory.
That's very interesting that you guys actually didn't rechamber that round, because when I was in, we would follow the same procedure, right? Like you're going on post, load your gun, coming off post, unload your gun, and we would just take that round and put it back. So that was like the first round, right? And it was much later that I learned that is a terrible way to go about things.
Yeah. So our standard procedure was that like every day there was what it's called дежурный по роте, which is like a sergeant in charge of the whole of the barracks, right? And he would have few soldiers. They were also in charge for cleaning toilets and all that stuff. And every day would be different shift, right? Different groups. So one of those, in those units that did the patrolling or guard duties or whatnot, one of those after each change of shift would walk out there and he pick up those rounds and put in the bucket, and they were going in the separate box and they were being used as training ammunition on the range.
Okay, that's cool.
They were not going back into combat load for people to go to on post.
Now, and forgive me, was that when you were regular Army or when you were Spetsnaz?
That was in regular.
Okay. In Spetsnaz, did you guys have access?
In units, the same thing. I mean, whatever was in the chamber, once it comes out, it does not go back into your combat load.
But so as a Spetsnaz, did you guys have access to ammo whenever you wanted, or was it a check in and check it out thing?
Check in, check out when we were in the barracks. When we were deployed and we were in the barracks in our deployment where we were at, we were always had it with us and on us.
Okay, yeah,
but if we were on our home base, it was the same procedure. Weapons were in the armory, and if we were going training, if we're doing some things or whatnot, you go through the whole procedure. But once they loaded us on the planes and they took us to places to do things, it was 24/7 with us on us.
And would you guys unload before and after doing stuff?
No.
Oh, it would just stay loaded.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, for us, there was the check-in, like check-in, check-out when things aren't normally going on. And then when you were deployed, you would have ammo on you all the time, but it would be only when you're on post on patrol. That would be when you would actually have it loaded, and they would make you unload when you got back.
I mean, it's understandable. If you're staying on some big base somewhere in the Royal Palace in Baghdad or whatnot, there's so many layers. You're not going to be the guy who's going to run out and immediately get into a gunfight. You know what I mean? You're probably still 3 kilometers away from the fucking main entrance gate or whatnot. To some degree, like logically, I get it. But at the same time, if you have forward deployed troops in the bad guys' lines and you don't trust them to have shit on them with them all time, it also smells funny to me,
Well, and that's kind of like where the word professional has also been completely bastardized. And by the way, Gary, I'm gonna ask you about same stuff, but along the lines of competition shooting here in a second. But like. It's like, am I a professional or not? Am I allowed to have a loaded gun or not? And, and thinking about, you shouldn't be the one to get in a gunfight when you're on base. But at the same time, I was on Camp Leatherneck when Taliban wore uniforms to get on base and then blew up a whole Harrier squadron, by all means, potentially, guys over there should have had for sure one in the chamber, even though you wouldn't expect that to happen. Now, Gary, competition shooting, what does it look like for that as far as gun safety? What do you feel on those subjects? Now, for people who don't know, Gary was a IDPA Is it Grand Wizard or was it?
Grand Dragon, one of those.
I knew it was gonna go into racist way. I knew it.
No, that's just what we call them now. I'm a Grandmaster Dragon Wizard.
I when I stopped doing IDP, I was a master class in like 2 divisions. So I did it a little bit here and there. So they kind of do it weird. Obviously, there's no central authority to turn shit in and get it from. So you're on your own. You could pretty much fuck with guns in a lot more places, but like they had a whole an area where you could go fucking make all the noises from the Magpul Dynamics video. But you couldn't touch ammo. So that could only happen in the places where you couldn't do the things. And they just kind of assumed you were going to follow that rule. I saw many folks break those rules, but there were like the few people that were running the matches and shit, like are kind of focused on the guy shooting. And so there was a lot of weird things happening in the back. And it was like, I don't know, they felt it was safe, but a lot of absent-minded gun handling behind the actual match itself.
As in breaking the 4 rules? Or
because so they had like a safety table, IDPA did, where you could go, adjust your sights or fucking tweak your ejector or whatever fuck people did to their 1911s. And when you got over there, like that's the safety table. So as long as you're not touching ammo, you can take that thing and fucking do whatever you want, wherever you want. So everybody would get muzzled. But it was because they were unconsciously unaware of where the muzzle was pointing. It wasn't like they said, hey, this is a moment where somebody's going to get muzzled here. I went through the threshold of a room, and as I dug my corner, collapsed my sector. Oh, there was a unknown person there that I muzzled because I didn't know if they should be muzzled or not. This was I didn't even know I muzzled the 30.
Yeah,
but it was okay because you weren't allowed to touch ammo there, so the gun couldn't possibly be loaded.
Hey Gary, can you make that sound again? I really like. Yeah, man, we need to record that and have that as an audio clip, like separately used. Like you start the podcast and it starts with.
Yeah, that would be a great intro video. Just like no sound on the actual video, just Gary's like.
Yeah,
and then one kapow. Sometimes that follows the.
Now, it's like that's very much along the lines. I don't think I've shared this story online before, but no, I'm not throwing shade. Like look, the people that this happened with, I'm still friends with, and I'm just gonna leave their names out. But because like in Afghanistan specifically, because we were no round in chamber, but we'd have a mag with bullets in the gun, right? But it was like, oh, no round in chamber. Guys started getting really fuck around complacent, like I don't believe common sense is a real thing, because we've all done retarded shit. Okay, this would be retarded shit that even though they're otherwise pretty decent, smart guys, shouldn't be doing this. So what guys ended up doing out of fucking boredom, and this is where horror stories happen, right? But guys would pick up a rifle and dry fire at each other with a mag still in it. Now, very, very fucking thankful my friend at least checked, even though he was about to do the thing, right? But he picked up one of my other friend's rifles. Now, my other friend was actually in the area where a lot of the fighting was going on. Most guys were not. So he was a guy who took violence seriously. And even though we weren't allowed to have a round in the chamber, he would. Other friend picked up that gun. And I was like, wait a second. Took the mag out, and a round went flying out. And he was just like, oh, fuck. And that's where it gets us, you know, and that's like the thing I say is that the safer we try to make things, the less competent we become, right? The more we do stuff like that, the more we get away from competence, try to add layers and layers and layers of safety, people get complacent, and because their brain doesn't have to take it seriously, they'd stop taking it seriously. And, you know, kind of like in class, you know, one thing, the big things that I go for that I'm sure you guys do too, but I'll tell them, like, hey, when you take that gun out of the holster, like, go up, draw it at the target. Don't waste that chance to get a positive repetition to get better at simply your draw stroke. Or like, say they only got a few rounds left in the mag, so they want to put in a fresh mag. Well, go up, draw that fucking gun like you're in a gunfight, reload it like you're in a gunfight. The other thing with that is if they do that, referencing the target or at least something, you know, not just willy-nilly, not aware of what's happening, they're actually going to be safer because they're striving to be more competent. Now, what are your guys' thoughts on that? And do you have any stories like that you've seen that you'd want to share? You don't have to, though, of course.
Like your first story where people were doing stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a personal story that I can recall off the top of my head that sounds that retarded, but when the military has a bunch of fucking stupid ass rules, and you know the list is like 600 items long, that's why they have those rules. I'm not saying all those rules will prevent you and your buddies from dry firing at each other, but they're just going to keep adding things until you stop doing that. So like I get it when people are like, yeah, those 19-year-old kids are fucking stupid. Yeah, I was a stupid 19-year-old kid too.
Yeah.
So I understand that they're concerned for a reason. I don't know if just making the list of rules, you know, to be triple digits in length is the answer, but I at least I know where their heart is when they're making that list. Is to try to keep Andrew from dry firing.
No, it was not me. It was not me. It was not fucking me. You know, I wouldn't do that just because I don't want to get punched in the face. Okay. I don't like.
Yeah, you know, to me, it's, I don't know, not about the stories, but I'll agree with you, Andrew, there that I think the safety, you know, safety that comes from the person is directly related to competence. It is directly related to competence. Rules themselves don't make us safer. They don't, you know, and I've seen the drills that Gary does and you do and all that stuff where people walk in front and person has to raise the weapon as people walk by, not put it on safe, not, you know what I mean? I think that serves a lot better to make people safe because they become competent. They're able to see a little bit outside of the fucking tunnel, you know, and that fear of, oh my God, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. You're going to raise it in the safe direction. Person will walk by and you put it back on the target and you're going to do your thing. Nothing is going to happen if you just do that, you know, and yeah, I really have no problem with that whatsoever. Actually, I think I have a problem when people don't do that. You know, when they're trying to keep the shooting ranges clean as a fucking surgery rooms, and it's the only thing is missing is fucking surgical masks. That way, we don't cough unsafe words upon each other and shit like that. You know, and infect each other with Kapow 19. You know, and it's just. I don't know. You know, the more dangerous person becomes, the safer he will be. And I think that's, you know, that relationship exists. And to make people more dangerous, you know, it involves taking certain risks. They calculate it. They measured by instructors, by people that put together the courses, the drills, and all that. And there are a few pairs of eyes watching it, hopefully. and hopefully those who doing those drills, they have their shit together and presence of mind. And if they don't, that's another responsibility for instructors to see that someone is falling apart, whether it's mental, emotional, or whatnot, and pull them off the fucking line and go like, hey, dude, take a breather. It's fine. Smoke a doobie. Chill, and you'll get back to it when you're ready to get back to it, if you are, and so that's that.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think there's a huge difference too that outsiders need to consider, where it's like the context of, if you're like a person who never trains, doesn't carry a fucking gun, they're the gun in the safe type person, right? When they look at like the way training goes, because it's funny, guys with no training will always be the first ones to say what training people should be doing.
Funny that.
Yeah. But thinking about the context too, right? Who's trying to be competent? What's the purpose behind that? Because like people own guns for different reasons. It's like some people own it, they just think it's cool. Some people own it, they're like, hey, I want to go hunting. Some people are like, this is my force field. Now I have it, everything will be fine. And some people take violence seriously. And with our students, like especially our best students, they're the people that take violence seriously, or at least they're starting to, right? And because everyone's on their different path. Not everyone is all the way there. But like, I had it not too long ago. I was, students were taking a water break, jamming mags. I went to use the bathroom, and RSO was like, you left a berm full of people there? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, no, don't worry, I'll watch them for you. I was like, well, first off, like, Mr. RSO, I think these guys have more training than you, because they've been here for 4 hours today. I don't think you've had that, judging by the no medical and the circle holster and the fact that I've never heard you talk about a class you've taken. But it's like that. It's like looking at for people who look at it from the outside. If you've never taken a class with one of us or one of the people that's going to be at the summit or someone like us, like you need to do that to actually understand it. Just like I train with a lot of people who I flat out disagree with their philosophy, but I find the good things I can learn from them, and then I bring it to our circle, right? And if someone's looking at it from the outside, they're like, oh man, that's crazy, it should be like this. Well, what is even the purpose behind you owning a gun in general, or a knife, or whatever, a vehicle? Is it just a hobby, or are you actually trying to become competent with it? Now, I think we've fucking pretty much smashed this home. I could unleash more autism for an hour, but we could take a look at some of the comments. Now, we've had up to 50 people watching at one time, so I'm not going to be able to go back and go through everything. I see a lot of people saying good evening. Got Chuck here, got different people here. But if you have questions for any of these guys, go ahead, start typing them now. Reminder, the Combat Art Summit, where these two other gentlemen will be at teaching, is going to be September 27th and 28th in Gray, Kentucky at Taprack Ridge. If any of the instructors on the list you have trained with before, you can hit them up for a discount code, and they will get you $100 off your ticket. We got Jay here, Chuck Peoples. What is up, guys? Pinkster Tactical, what's up, man? Now, submit any questions you have. I'm not trying to make these guys sit up here all night. Rich Alby's talking about jump wings. I don't know why people like jumping out of airplanes. That's highly retarded behavior to me. I would not advise doing that.
I don't even like getting in them when I know they're going to land.
Yeah. Remember what happened last time I tried to fly an airplane, guys?
Yeah, we do remember.
TJ's here. Hey, fuck you, TJ. I can have a toaster.
Bro, you can't have a toaster because your friends dry fired at each other.
Yeah, exactly. I can't have a car either.
Help, but that's why the toaster rule existed.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, but y'all can still submit them if you got them. I'll leave it.
There is a question here.
Okay.
Pink Shirt Tactical says, how do we bridge the gap between the competition guys and defensive guys? I find there's still a rift between these two cultures. Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know if it's about bridging the gap. I think it's more of a recognition that we're in different fields, and we need to talk about it without trying to insult the other side. If people enjoy doing competition, like, as you know, guys, I teach defensive stuff, right? So I teach a lot of hand to hand and knives and all that stuff, right? There are dudes that are 100% subscribed to MMA UFC mentality, right? And I don't want to disrespect. For one, at the high level of MMA, these are dangerous dudes. These are dangerous dudes. They are second to none as overall athletes, and they do have skills that can put you in some bad places very damn quickly. Same with competition performance shooters. If he gets a drop on you and if he has that gun in the right place, okay, he can probably do some pain delivery pretty damn quickly and pretty damn definitively. There's nothing there to disrespect, but when dudes from competitive performance shooting realms start dwelling into, you know oh, you did this wrong, and it's completely different context, or they sometimes don't even know 10% of the context of what we're doing, but from their perspective, from their vantage point, they right away to start trash talking and all that. It's not necessarily respond and say, like, hey, you stupid fuck, you don't know what you're doing, you're a douchebag who shoots at paper and counts the points. you know Take your fucking time and explain the context. And if they don't understand it and if they still want to mock us, so be it, man. Drop the conversation, don't waste your time. It's okay. I think we need to talk more about really the contextual differences and understanding what each brings to the table and what we can borrow from them. There's not much they can borrow from us because they're not interested in the realm that we're dwelling in. Most of them are not. Some of them are, and if they are, they will come to the classes and they'll get a taste of it. But these internet discussions with those dudes, Andrew, you know yourself how it ended up with one of them. He posted all these, very, how would I say, fatherly advices to you and all that stuff. And I'm listening to that dude, and I'm going like, I don't like to say it because it sounds disrespectful, but you do want to say it. My head is going like, son, let me tell you. But you know what I'm saying? You just kind of go like, all right. I mean, where is this going to lead? Where is this going to lead? I tell you, where is this going to lead? I'm going to be posting for 2 fucking hours instead of playing with my daughter or cleaning my gun. Wait, I don't clean my guns. Doing something else, And then for 2 days, I'm going to be spending each day, every 15 minutes, I'm going to be checking for new comments, who responded, who said what, and why?
Yeah.
Why? Let's just point out the differences in the context. What is it that they do? What is it what we do? And we agree to disagree because our purpose is different, and it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Competitive martial artists don't understand certain things about what I do. Until I do it to them, they don't understand it. But to talk about it on the internet, man, it's it's useless. Oh, this punch that Sonny does would never work in a real fight. Okay, sure. How do you explain that through fucking Facebook? You don't. It has to be skin on skin. You gotta grind it. And most of them, they will not come for skin on skin contact. So why bother?
Yeah, and I think it's also along the lines, like, I've done actually a couple live streams on this subject recently that you could check out. But it also comes back to something that Sonny talked about, and myself and Tom, and that was that this industry is not worth saving, right? And thinking about like the guy that was talking shit on me, I just didn't engage with him. Like I tried to ask questions but be respectful on Instagram when he was talking, but then he just didn't reciprocate that way. You got very childish and whatnot. So I was just like, all right, whatever. And then I was like, yeah, go ahead and make some videos if you have a conversation. And they did. But it's like, forming a new culture, right? Not so much like the tactical guys, because even like how divided are each school as far as the tactical guys, it's pretty fucking bad. And I think so forming a better culture, right? Like the focus on my company is to save lives, change culture for the better, and then advance the art. And so forming something new, that's what all of us are a part of. And also being the example. Like I'm taking a class, the Coast to Coast Tactical, coming up here pretty soon. He is a master class USPSA shooter and a real cool dude. I really hope I can bring him into one of my classes or one of your guys' classes too. And but why would anyone from that side consider me if I suck at everything they do, right? So I also have to be the example in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's, as you know, in my classes, I really pay very little attention to truly, it's never 100% focused on performance shooting or marksmanship. My focus is elsewhere, and at the same time, I will say that, yeah, pressing the trigger is less than 10% of the gunfight. But if that press does not achieve the results that you need to achieve, the other 90% were meaningless. So everything has its weight. Percentage is not the most important metric, because everything has its weight in the fight. So I see a lot of dudes in our, I hate the word too, just as you do, Andrew, tactical circles. They go like, I don't give a fuck how I shoot, and I go like, oh, no, you should. You should. And the better you do it, the better you're going to be at other things, and the more likely you're going to be finishing that dot at the end of the sentence if you do everything else right. So again, I don't want to mock. I think it's not right to mock, because there's no reason to mock the performance shooting. But when you see that overwhelming focus on nothing else matters, and you do all this other shit just because you are shitty shot, like certain person that we don't want to mention, which I don't care mentioning his name. I will if you want me to, but Alpha something something. It's people are entitled to their opinions. It's perfectly fine, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure, at least from a little bit that I've seen of him on interwebs, it does look like the guy is a competent fucking shot. There is no doubt about it. But making these absolute statements that everything else that others do, how you transition the weapon, how you do that, it's all meaningless because you're a shitty shot. That's pretty dumbass statement, dude. And at that level, with the background that dude comes from, that actually diminishes the value of that whole community. When someone talks like that, that's disrespectful to his own group, to his own people. It's a shame.
Gary, please add. We've had this talk a lot.
Well, I'm all for the mocking, but I'm not for mocking. The fact that these guys like competition shooters, like, oh, I love shooting matches, whatever their discipline is. Great, that's fine. I mock them once they exhibit shitty behavior that seems to follow them more than the average of regular American dudes. Like the percentage of shitty behavior is higher in those circles. So if those circles feel that they get an extra dose of mocking from me, it's because they act like people who deserve to be mocked. Not just because they're competition shooting. Like I did that for a bunch of years, and I got a bunch of friends that still do it. But my friends that shoot competition are like my friends that don't. They're not assholes, because I don't associate with a bunch of shitbirds. But if you're a shitbird and you shoot competition, I'm gonna mock you. And if I use the competition stuff to mock you, well, I'm gonna use everything except your wife, your parents, and your kids to mock you. Everything else is fair game. So, you know, if I say unload and show queer, it's not because everyone that does that in the match. It's because I don't like, and I'm going to something that you enjoy. I'm going to make fun of it to, you know, poke the bear, which I have a modicum of skill in poking the bear.
And one of the funny ones that I've heard, I think it came from you, Gary, but was I don't need skills. I use mindset.
It's like the other end. It's not the competition guys. It's the other direction that are like, I can mindset my way through everything. Oh, well, do tell how you do that. And they're like, well, I just refuse to be beaten.
That's
Oh,
great, man.
that's your mindset? Okay. And then there's like, you know, like the mama bear who rips the door off the car to save their child. I'm like, so you're relying on that to get you through your violent confrontation. Okay.
Well, that I would mock with you, Gary,
Yeah.
and I would use my pretty significant modicum of skills to to double up on that douchewag, absolutely, positively, yes.
Yeah, I'm like, so I can't say like, hey, it's just the competition guys that, you know, they have their narrow focus. I only need this, because there are the other folks who are like, yeah, I'm so aware of my surroundings, I don't need skill. Oh, okay, bro, you didn't even realize I had my hand on my gun for our entire conversation. Like, what situational awareness are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
I usually do that when people start having a conversation about situational awareness. I will put my hand on my gun for the whole conversation just to see if they even glance down to go, oh shit.
I
Very
just say,
good.
are you aware that this whole time I had a full erection because you sound like a hoe? And that excites me, you know?
All right, so now, guys, I want to leave it to you. Go ahead, pimp classes coming up, pimp events. Of course, Combat Air Training Summit. These guys will be there. I'm going to throw that on the screen also. But go ahead and Sonny, go first. Let them know what you got coming up, what to check out. Also, I will give you a plug. Episode 1 of the Gospel of Violence, Sonny, it's just Sonny talking, and it's awesome. And he actually does go over some of the topics that we discussed in this. So y'all should check that out. All right, go ahead, sir.
Appreciate that, Andy. So I have a few things coming up here. I have April 26, 27, whatever, Shooter Fighter Matrix 2 right here for the Honey Badger. Then I have something in the same place in Kentucky, a K class coming up in May. And then I'm taking off basically the whole month of June and most of July, doing some things. And then at the end of July, I will be traveling, going to Ohio. I'm going to actually taking the radio class from Radio Made Easy. And then I'm traveling to Klingman's place in New London, teaching the Shooter Fighter Matrix 2.5 Deep Penetration, which is very, very specialized class. After that, I'll be heading to Pennsylvania, where I will be doing the Violence Uncensored 3-day class in Scranton, Pennsylvania, prior to Tremis muster. And right after Tremis muster, I'm doing the AK class. And then on and on and on and on. It continues. It's on my website, www.sonnypuzikas.com. That's really about it. Finishing up in the final stages of editing the book. That will be shipping out very, very soon. There's some interesting, exciting things coming up. In 2026, I just posted it today, I will have instructor development course. It's a 3-day class for instructors, but not instructors under forward training concepts or what I teach. It's just in general how to be a better instructor, how to structure drills, how to talk, how to present things, how to teach students how to think. And that's going to be about that. And that's already posted on my website, so you can check it out.
That's awesome. Let me know when you have that. I will share it. The instructor class, I've learned a ton from both these guys. But like, I consider them mentors of mine. Now, Gary, go ahead.
Well, I was not prepared, which is pretty typical for me. So I got shit happening just about every weekend from now till the fucking end of the year, it seems like. So I'm going to hit the things that, like I would call the highlights. Next big, I'm doing a tour of my fish classes, which is fighting in someone's house. One of those every month for the next few months up in Scranton. We're going to do that again at the end of the year and do them back to back to back to back, like fish 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, and 6, all in 1 week. Big things that are happening that are cool will be the muster in August, like it has been every year. This time it's 2 days, more instructors, more bays to do stuff in. So it should be like even more cool. Everyone on your screen right now will be there. Well, I hope everyone on the screen will be there because Andrew has a hard time making things on time and whatnot.
Here, we're all on screen now.
Oh, now we're all on
screen. Now fucking technology works and you're talking shit on me, you boomer.
But I'm also going to Huntsville, Alabama in the end of June. First time I'm going there, doing an indoor range there, doing a shooting and moving pistol workshop and a low light pistol workshop. Going back to Texas, Paducah, Texas in, I want to say November, for fish 3 and 3.5. Obviously, the big one that everyone's talking about, but it's way sold out. Nobody can sign up for it, is Wolverine Warfare, which is kind of a partisan small unit tactics class based off of the greatest documentary ever to hit cinema. Sonny, I got to tell you, everybody that's coming is paranoid that you will be there as a guest instructor to hunt them while they sleep. I've just keep telling them that I have guest instructors who shall remain nameless. And, if you want to show up and hunt them, you are more than welcome to. But they're already paranoid about it.
He might actually be there right now. That might just be a backdrop behind them.
Yeah, a green screen. And then something similar to what Sonny mentioned later on in the year in October. Let me look at my calendar here and make sure I'm not fucking this up. October 10, 11, 12 October. I am doing a 3-day instructor class. Mostly because a lot of the instructors that I respect and love what they do are getting older, and there needs to be more newer instructors like carrying the flag. So if I can put on a class to help usher some more of them in, I feel like it's my responsibility to do so, because at someday I'm going to step out of this, and like the core group of guys that I talk about as my colleagues are all roughly the same age. Actually, they're all a little older than me. So I feel like I should probably help, replace them. So I'm doing that this October as well. Those are the big things on the list. And then there's a bunch of normal like workshops and stuff on most of the weekends available on the website if you're interested.
And that is TremisDynamics.com and SunnyPZKits.com or ForwardTrainingConcepts.com. All right.
And by the way, The Red Dawn is the shittiest sci-fi movie ever. Just clarifying here, okay?
He's just like every other veteran watching movies. Like they got the fucking all the gears wrong. They don't salute at that time. That's why he doesn't like it.
You guys are aware that they actually asked me. I was in the process of negotiating being a advisor slash weapons expert trainer for the Red Dawn 2.
Well, it
And,
would have made it better because that was a terrible movie.
yeah, and when I heard some of the details of what it's gonna be like, I kind of discontinued communications with the people, and so yeah, that's that.
Probably a
All right.
smart move.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping in on this. I had a fucking blast and a lot of positive comments in the chat, and we had up to 50 people at one point, maybe more. So I really appreciate it, guys.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys. So thank you guys for watching. Kill all pedophiles. And remember that training saves lives.